understanding there's a lot in the crowd from Pacifica High School. Is that right?
Triton.
Triton. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, we will now begin the second half of the candidate forum, the mayoral candidate section. We would like to begin by doing the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America. Everybody please stand up. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I will pass over the microphone to our moderator. This is Dr. Deborah DeWright.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We're so pleased to welcome members of our community, our distinguished guests of our community, our administrators, our staff, faculty, and our great students. And in addition, our leaders of our community who are going to be debating this evening. We're looking forward to hearing their viewpoints and understanding more about their perspectives for our city, our wonderful city. We would like to begin with the basics about honoring our associated student government. Our students here have recently been recipients of an amazing Youth Activism Award for some of the great activities that they've been committed to, not only on campus, but also throughout the city of Oxnard and the county of Ventura. And I'd like us all to start that evening off with a rousing big hand for us. This energy is how we're going to get you warmed up for the great evening about to begin. What we're going to be doing in terms of the structure tonight, we have our three wonderful candidates, and they're each going to introduce themselves, and then we'll begin with about a 5-minute introduction. We have a timekeeper in the front row, Francisco Ferrara, in the white shirt. He's going to hold up a card when you get closer to the end of your time period. You'll see a sample, a green for 30 seconds, a pink for 10 seconds, and the blue sheet when it means that your time is expired, and I'll give you a friendly reminder for that time. So we'll begin with the first part, which is your introduction. Then, I'm sorry, the introduction, I must correct myself, it's 1 minute introduction. And then we'll be going, we have 3 separate questions, and each one of those questions will be 2 minutes each. And then we'll have a time where you have questions from the audience. And we'll ask that you, the audience, if you think of questions as the candidates are speaking earlier, our student body president and our other officers will be walking around with cards for you to be able to fill out and ask questions. And then the candidates will have a chance to answer some of the questions from the audience. And then at the closing of the evening, our candidates will have an opportunity for a 1-minute closing. Okay, so we'll begin, and the first question will, when we begin, we'll start with Mr. Stein, and we'll go to the next question down the line. We'll begin with Mr. Flynn, and then we'll begin with Mr. McDonald. But the first portion of this is just a brief introduction so that we understand who our great candidates are here tonight. And for that, we will begin with Mr. Stein.
Thank you for inviting me. This is a great turnout, and I appreciate the warm response I'm getting. My name is Larry Stein. I'm an accountant. I focus on fiscal issues. I've been studying fiscal issues of the state of Oxnard for over 20 years. I wish to be the next mayor because of 3 points. I believe that we need to have local labor for local jobs. We're going to be spending $500 million, $500 million in the next 10 years on capital improvement projects. That money needs to stay in Ventura County so that our families who are paying taxes get that money in the form of labor and work in the recycling community. We need to hold senior staff accountable for some of the actions. I find some of the actions taken by city council, by city staff members to be questionable, and the ethical standards of city staff is also subject to review. The third issue, I want to be more, have the city be more proactive, not reactive when it comes to social issues. We need to mediate social issues before they become criminal issues. Our police department does a wonderful job, but not social workers. When they get involved in domestic violence issues, they got to arrest somebody. That doesn't fix social issues. So I wish to have the city involved and be more proactive in social issues and not reactive. Please vote for me for your next mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Flynn, thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the ESG for sponsoring this event, and as well as Dr. Duran, who's in the audience, and students from Oxnard College and Pacifica High School. As many of you know, I'm the mayor of the city of Oxnard. It's a privilege to be the mayor of Oxnard. And most importantly, about 22 months ago, I was elected as mayor, I believe, to restore confidence in Oxnard's government and the leaders in Oxnard to lead this great community. And I think, largely speaking, as mayor, I've made a down payment towards restoring that confidence and trust that people elect public officials to represent the people, not special interests. And I'm a candidate who believes in people above special interests. The theme of my campaign is to believe in Oxnard. Oxnard is the best place to be in Ventura County. I would argue it's one of the best places in the state of California. But in order for Oxnard to move forward, people have to regain the confidence that they lost several years ago when the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the district attorney investigated the city. I think the city council, collectively, I serve on the city council with Councilman McDonald, has made great strides to restore that confidence, but we haven't finished our work yet. We have a lot of streets that need to be paved. We've gotten that underway. And most importantly, I ask for your vote November 4th, and thank you very much for attending this evening.
Thank you. And Mr. McDonald.
I'll start out saying and say thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this forum. Thank you to Oxnard College, the Associated Student Government. I have a very simple campaign. I'm focusing on two things: efficiency and public safety. I spent 30 years with the Oxnard Police Department, 29 years as a police officer there. Retired. I've been on city council for 6 years. And for about the last 32 years, I've been a part-time instructor at Ventura College in that city to the north of us. I'm very involved in this community. I love this community. When I retired, my wife and I had a brief discussion saying, where would you like to live? We can live anywhere we want. And her answer was simple. She said, we're already here. This community is very important to me. I want to see us prosper and move to the future, and I would ask for your vote in November. Thank you very much.
Well, thank all three of you. Let's give them a warm round of applause. Thank you. And to begin, we're going to ask the first question, and the first question is a two-parter, and I'll begin with Mr. Stein. This question is, the first part is, what is one thing you believe Oxnard needs more of? And the second part of it is, what is one thing Oxnard needs less of? So again, what is one thing you believe Oxnard needs more of? And the second part, what is one thing Oxnard needs more of?
Awesome.
Oxnard needs more of, yeah.
What's the first? One's more, one's less.
One's more and one's less. And then this is 2 minutes for each. 2 minutes total for you.
Thank you very much. We have a serious issue, social issues. We have too much domestic violence. We have too much drinking. We have too much drug abuse. We have too many people are being incarcerated. Being incarcerated doesn't solve social issues. So I propose that we hire social workers. The Ventura County is loaded with social workers, but they're overburdened. Most of the caseload stems from Oxnard. We need to treat our family as family. We need more social workers and get involved. The police department does a wonderful job, but not social workers. We need experts on social issues to solve social issues. The criminal justice system isn't working. On that note, we could use fewer police officers. If we're going to take the money somewhere, perhaps the police department can see a budget reduction. We have approximately 1 type class crime per hour. That's 12, less than 17 per day. We have 90 uniformed police officers to handle Class 1 crimes at 1 per hour. To me, based on Class 1 crimes, we have too many police officers. A lot of police officers are going out for calls for service related to social issues. If we can fix the social issues, our police department can focus on criminal issues and resolve criminal crimes. The activities taking place aren't being solved by the police department because the resources are lacking. It's not for lack of effort, but lack of funding. And if we allocate a fund and fix the problems, then the police department can go get involved in solving real issues that face the community at large. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Well, I appreciate Mr. Stein's perspective on social issues, but I think largely speaking, social issues hinge on economic prosperity. And the more prosperous people are, not just in this country or state, but here in the city of Oxnard, the less social issues there will be. Doesn't mean that with prosperity all social issues go away, but really it's about prosperity, and being that this is an institution of higher educational attainment, it's all about education. And it's about you, young members in this audience, understanding, and I think your presence here confirms this, that the direct link is between education and higher attainment and prosperity in society. So you want great lives, you want Oxnard to be a great place, it is a great place, but you want to be a part, you're the future leaders of this community, and it's all about education, higher educational attainment, and prosperity of the residents. With prosperity, a lot of the social problems will go away. So I might argue a little bit of a different bent. I don't think we need more government workers. I don't think we need more police. I don't think we need to grow government. We need to grow prosperity in the city of Oxnard.
Thank you very much. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. I think the first thing that we need less of, I'll start out with more of, is we need more focus. If you watch us as an organization, as a governing body, we have no focus, we have no direction, we seem to be all over the map. We need to get down to business. We were elected to make decisions on behalf of the city. Unfortunately, it's not unusual that our meetings will go beyond the 5-hour limits. Sometimes they go till midnight, they've even gone later on 1 or 2 occasions. And it's not unusual that we don't even get through a full agenda one night and we push things off. Unfortunately, our staff relies upon us to make decisions so they can carry out their duties and do the job they're supposed to do. And when we don't make decisions, they can't do their work. That's inefficient for government. In terms of what we need less of, it will hinge upon the first part of the question, endless discussions. We will talk about things forever. We will bring things back 2, 3, 4 times before we may make a decision. We need to be efficient, focused, and direct our attention toward doing what we're elected to do, which is make decisions on behalf of this community to allow the workers that work here to do what they need to do to make this community move forward.
Thank you very much. And we're going to be moving on to the second question in just a minute. Before I do that, I'd like you to notice on the side the lady taking photos is Elizabeth Valencia, and she's our student body president. And she, along with some of the other officers wearing black shirts with the student body logo, will be walking around during the next questions to see if you have any questions that you would like to ask of our candidates. And those will be read to the candidates in just a little bit if you have them. So please feel free to fill out the cards if you have them and think of questions for our candidates. The next question will begin with Mr. Flynn, and this question is, what kind of accountabilities would you impose onto companies or corporations whose service or products harm the environment?
Well, number one, we don't need companies in the city of Oxnard that are going to harm the environment. And when I say that, I should be specific. That, you know, we have power plants on the beaches, right? A company owns the power plant. The power plant burns natural gas. Natural gas is a hydrocarbon. It's going to harm the environment. When I say that we don't need companies that are going to harm the environment, I mean companies like Halico that left a Soviet Union era mess on the beach, if you can even imagine that. So it starts by saying that we want to grow jobs in the city of Oxnard, we want higher paying jobs in the city, and we want the students here in this audience to attain those jobs, those higher paying jobs through education, but by all means we don't want to attract employers that are going to do anything to adversely harm the environment. And that's why I believe in clean jobs in particular new economy jobs in high tech, biotech, and medical research. Those are some of the highest paying jobs in this country. They have very little harm on the environment. It doesn't mean they're absolutely environmentally sound from a perspective of not doing any damage to the environment, but they're some of the cleanest jobs in this economy. So it really needs to start by not having those employers here in the city of Oxnard, period.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. There are two basic types of accountability that you can impose on someone that harms the environment, and they're very straightforward. One is criminal liability, and if they're committing criminal acts, we should prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. Keeping in mind that criminal liability is to punish people, to make them responsible for what they've done. The second part of accountability is the civil accountability. And civil accountability is designed to put us all as a community to repair the damage that was done to us and make that company pay for what they've done to harm us as a community. You need both parts. You can't have, well, you can have one or the other, but it won't be a full solution. Not only should people that intentionally harm our environment, do damage to our community, be held criminally liable for it, they need to fix it, they need to repair it, they need to replace it, they need to do whatever's right to make it correct. And I will follow up with the comments that the mayor made. Halico left a criminal pile of junk. We are going to deal with that for our generation, for future generations, until we can recover that. That's not fair, it's not acceptable, it shouldn't be allowable, and we need to be as aggressive as possible to resolve that.
Thank you. And thank you very much. And Mr. Stein?
There's very little as a city council member can do to control the environment activities of a given corporation. I've worked with small companies that have 4 or 5 employees and large companies that hire tens of thousands of people. Some companies intentionally get involved in activities that may harm the environment, some don't. Most companies are responsible. I don't know how many of you know that in the 1990s, Oxnard produced electric buses. We had an electric bus company on 5th Street, and those buses are still running. They're running in Burbank, they're running in Santa Monica, and they're running in Santa Barbara. This is the type of companies that we need. To make these buses, they have a fiberglass plant. The fiberglass plant is in strict control by the county for pollution control. The same controls that this company had to go under, every company has to go under. When a company opens up anywhere in California, they have to go through a certain permit process. And it's through the permit process that's involved in making sure that companies are in compliance. The Oxnard Police Department has department inspects companies, the county has inspectors, and the state has inspectors. And many employees in these companies who feel that they are being harmed by activities in the company, they will complain. And it's through involvement by our citizens that creates a situation that holds companies accountable. Without the public being involved, there's no way that city officials, county officials, and state officials can know that laws are being broken. So it's upon the citizens and community being involved that notifies what's going on. So in and of itself, companies come in cleanly and operate cleanly, and it's the responsibility of the community to hold companies responsible.
Thank you. Thank you all for your responses. And finally, for this next one, it will be Mr. McDonald answering first. And the question is, what will be some of your priorities if elected or re-elected mayor of the city of Oxnard?
Thank you. And I've already touched on one of these, but I'll touch on it again. One of them is going to be internal efficiency as a community, as a government, as a governing body. We need to make decisions. That's what we're elected to do. And by making those decisions, we allow staff to move forward and make the decisions they need to make the city function. We need to look at our system of accountability and governance right now. We've just hired a new city manager, Mr. Greg Nyhoff, who's doing a wonderful job. I'm very impressed with him. But we have hamstringed him so much with our internal regulations that it's difficult for him to make a decision to make this government function. I'll use the example of vehicles. If somebody in this city wants to buy a truck and that costs over $25,000, they have to come to council and get permission to do that. To me, that's inappropriate. That should be a staff function. That should be done by Mr. Nyhoff. Now, giving that added extra ability to Mr. Nyhoff comes with responsibility. It's going to be our responsibility to oversee that and make sure that we monitor what's going on his level. And I think that's where we had some shortcomings. More discretion Mr. Nyhoff to run the city, which he was hired to do. It's still going to be our obligation to follow up and make sure that that's being done in the most efficient, correct manner possible. My second focus is on that of public safety. And public safety is very important to me. When I talk about public safety, I talk about the entire gamut of public safety, not just cops, but also firemen and everything else. We sit in an earthquake fault plan. It's that simple. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we're going to have a catastrophic event with an earthquake. Maybe in my lifetime, maybe not, but we need to be prepared to deal with that. 2 years ago, the city of Ventura closed a fire station and still had more firefighters per capita than the city of Oxnard. To me, that's unacceptable. And to follow up on the comment about Mr. Stein, hiring social workers is nice, but when someone calls 911, they expect a policeman, they expect a fireman, they expect them there within about 5 minutes, hopefully, not 10 hours for a social worker to show up. And no disrespect to social workers, they're wonderful people, but our system is designed to have emergency response. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. Thanks. Mr. Stein?
Thanks, Mr. Friend.
No, it goes this
Okay.
way.
I wish to focus on 3 points. Local labor for local jobs, holding senior staff accountable for their actions, and let's resolve social issues before they become criminal issues. We're going to be spending $500 million, that's $500 million, in the next 10 years in capital improvement projects. That money needs to stay in West Ventura County. It does not need to go out of the county, it does not need to go out of state. When we have $500 million staying in the community, that affects everybody because the workers will then spend their money locally and be paying the taxes locally. When that money leaves the county, that money leaves the economic cycle. So we need to spend our local money on local contracts and have people employed who are paying the taxes have some money come back to them. We need to hold staff accountable for their actions. Too many times, staff has gotten involved in activities that have caused criminal investigations. Staff does not respond effectively to City Council when questions are asked. They do not respond to City Council when items are supposed to be placed on the agenda and they get pulled without notice. The third issue is having social issues. With all due respect, we don't have enough activities taking place. Our response time by the police department and fire department is woefully inadequate. But that's because staffing isn't being appropriated enough. Social workers are needed to resolve social issues. If social issues are resolved, then the police department doesn't need to come out. That does not take away the need from the police department. That does not take away the need from the fire department. We can have paramedics respond to our calls for service and not fully trained fire department officials. We have issues that are resolved that aren't being resolved. We have too many people in jail, too many people in the criminal justice system. This cycle's been going on for 20 years, it's been going on for 30 years. 10% of the nation's population is in jail. This practice needs to stop, and I think having more social workers will help resolve this issue.
Thank you. And now, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. As mayor of the city of Oxnard, I've placed the paving of residential streets as the #1 priority. And that's exactly what I've done and the city council has done. We've spent $30 million. Most recently, we've allocated to pave every remaining residential street in the city of Oxnard. So that's my top priority, to make sure in the next 2.5 to 3 years that every residential neighborhood that has not been paved, that those streets are paved. So that's #1. #2, cut through the red tape at City Hall to help businesses get started with a one-stop shop. And not only a one-stop shop, but a business permitting center where we can attract businesses that want to start in the city. And we're not a hindrance to those businesses starting. We're actually creating and helping them create those businesses. #3, create a magnet school and a K-12 magnet school system in the city of Oxnard. To attract the highest paying jobs and the highest paying employers in the city of Oxnard, the schools have to have a stellar record. A stellar record. So those new economy jobs I was talking about in high-tech, biotech, and medical research, those companies cluster. And that means they gather together in areas where the schools have outstanding performance and also the training for those futuristic jobs. So I'm working with the Oxnard Union High School District to establish that new magnet school. I'm also set on revitalizing Channel Islands Harbor. Channel Islands Harbor used to be a destination point for people all across the state of California and in the county of Ventura. And today, look at Channel Islands Harbor. It lays largely speaking, undeveloped. We need to move forward on Channel Islands. And finally, bring you, the younger people of the city of Oxnard, into Oxnard city government.
Well, thank you very much. And I think let's give him another round of applause for the answers to these questions. I believe we have one or two more questions from the audience. This is your last chance. And then we're going to select, this is like a lottery. We're going to select three of the, one more? We're going to be selecting three of these questions to continue the round robin process of asking our candidates. And at this time, we will begin with, we're going to begin with Mr. Stein with this question. And this question is, how would you handle an overly violent police officer? I think that is as a city council, as a mayor.
By the time it comes to city council, the issue has to be not directed by city council. The direction needs to be handled by both human resource and the police chief. It is the responsibility of the city council to give direction to only two entities, the city manager and the city attorney. If there is direction taking place by any employee, not just the police officer involved in violent activity and performance of his duty, that action is handled through the course of normal procedure. And that procedure is handled through the city manager and his department head. So the city council can do very little in personnel issues. If that item comes to city council due to lawsuits, then city council deliberates in closed session. Unless an activity gets in closed session, city council can do very little regarding the activity other than to direct the city manager and the department head to take appropriate action.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Flynn?
And could you restate the question again, please?
Yes, basically, the question is, how would you handle, I'm sorry, I don't have a question. No. How would you handle, no, someone else. How would you handle a violent police officer?
Well, when it comes to city employees, a mayor and a city council handle it by referring it to the city manager. The city manager is the chief executive officer of the government. And it's kind of interesting sometimes about what people actually think, what a mayor does and what a city council does. But if it comes to any employee, not just a police officer, but any employee in the city, a city council member or a mayor doesn't directly handle those types of personnel issues. It's the city manager, and it's referred to the city manager for appropriate action.
Thank you very much. And Mr. McDonald?
I think we need to remember that the tone is set by the city council, how a city responds to any employee, be it a police officer or anyone else that is overly violent. Remember that police officers are here to protect the community. They're held to a higher standard. They're expected to set an example. If they don't adhere to the law, that is unacceptable. And there are systems in place, criminal prosecution or whatever, that need to be utilized to address that issue. It's not something we can turn our back on, it's not something we can ignore. They need to understand the law, and they're not over the law, they're not exempt from the law. They need to be that example, and if criminal prosecution is appropriate, then the district attorney's office is the one to be involved in that matter.
Well, thank you for that. And then the second question from the audience is, we'll start with Mr. Flynn. What's your position on local fracking?
On local fracking. My position on fracking is that the city council has to be focused on doing the job that it's elected to do. Fracking has very little to do with what the city council is elected to do. Okay? Fracking, to me, is more of a state issue. It doesn't mean that individual city council members can't take a position on the issue. My job as mayor of the city of Oxnard is to preside, along with the city council, over the government. Our job is to make sure that the government provides the very best services to the people of the city. So it's about paving streets, it's about making the city safer, it's about quality of life in neighborhoods. It's about bringing higher paying jobs. So as much as I think fracking is on the minds of many people, as mayor, quite frankly, I'm more concerned about the streets. I'm more concerned about higher paying jobs. I'm more concerned about the government doing the job that it's supposed to do.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. I think when you look at it in totality, and first off, I want to say that the city of Oxnard, in our code, does not allow for new oil drilling, exploration, anything within city limits. It's not possible. The existing wells that are out there are existing, what they call existing non-conforming, and most of them are outside city limits. But there's still a potential that the activities that these people engage in their work could affect it. So I think we have to be on top of it and really be aware of what the system works and how it works. I've done a little bit of reading on fracking. I'm not an expert on it by any stretch of the imagination. I think that anytime you inject something into the ground that potentially could have a hazardous or negative effect on your community, we have to be aware of it. We have to do whatever we can to make sure we regulate it the best way possible, and even be involved in those areas that are outside of our community, because we have to remember that systems that are outside of our city are dealing with substrata that are under our city. So I think we have to be extremely aware of it, and I don't think it's something we can take very lightly.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Stein?
I live in Lemonwood, a neighborhood just a mile north of here, if that. Behind my house is 800 acres of agricultural land. And in the northeast section of that land, fracking is taking place. There's a large tower constantly drilling away, making noise at night. What can I do about it? Very little. Because it's a county land, it's a county issue. All I can do is ask the county to enforce the laws and enforce the laws. So, as a city official, I can do very little. As mayor, I can do little more than just ask the county to review the issues and making sure that the activities taking place on county land, the county jurisdiction, is being handled correctly. So it's all I can do as mayor is making sure the laws are being followed outside the city limits by another government entity.
Thank you. Thank you all, both, all three of you for those answers. And the last question from the audience is how, and this one is going to be for, I'm so sorry, this one is for Mr. Flynn. What is, sorry, am I right? Yes. I'm sorry, this is for Mr. McDonald. Excuse me, getting my questions out of order. How would you handle selective code enforcement?
I'd be one to let Mr. Flynn go first if you like.
Just starting to get confused.
How would I handle selective code enforcement? Well, I will start out by saying selective code enforcement is not acceptable. The rules of our community, the rules of our land are that we are all treated equal. So when you use the term selective, that to me denotes improper activity, improper behavior on the part of somebody. It's not fair that maybe the mayor gets told he can't do a certain thing, and Mr. Stein gets a citation for doing that thing. I think that's disparate treatment. If we're gonna have the rules, they need to be fairly and impartially utilized across the spectrum. And my biggest concern, I think, is we have a lot of rules out there that we don't enforce, and my question always is, if we're not gonna enforce them, why do we even have these rules? But selectivity in any type of enforcement, be it code enforcement, the police department, Coupa, anything, any type of selective behavior is unacceptable. It has to be fair and impartial. It should take into account your economic status, the color of your skin, the church you go to, the school you attend, nothing. It should be equal across the board.
Thank you. And now Mr. Stein.
There is selective compliance on our city laws. I've complained numerous times at city council meetings and in private that it appears that commercial entities seem to get preference over code issues from residential entities. A case in point is this recent drought issue. Commercial property owners aren't being cited as often as residential property owners. And we only have one water compliance officer to enforce the entire drought codes in the city. Just one. So why doesn't the city hire more enforcement officers of code? Because they don't want to. We have 4 positions available for part-time code compliance officers. Only 2 have been filled by the city, even though city council directed 4 to be hired. So why isn't city council making sure we have sufficient staff available to make sure code is in compliance? Is because city council doesn't actually want to see compliance codes being enforced.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Flynn?
So I don't know of anybody running for any political office that's ever going to say to people, absolutely, I support selective code enforcement. I believe that just certain people in the community are going to pay the price for what other people don't have to do. So, I mean, I think it has somewhat of an obvious answer, but just to explain to the audience that codes are the equivalent of laws in a city. And largely speaking, laws are designed to protect people's health and safety. And so the job of code compliance is to make sure that people adhere to a set of rules, and by adhering or abiding by that set of rules, it will protect their health and safety. And I agree with Councilman McDonald. We have a lot of rules. Some of them I don't even think should be on the books. I don't even think should be a focus because they're nitpicky, they're a waste of time, and they really have very little to do with people's health and safety. Whether how your blinds are on the windows and a variety of things. What really is a concern of mine is that we have people in the city of Oxnard that are living in very, very unsafe housing conditions. Very unsafe. And I think they're being preyed upon by a group of people who, again, they're ethically challenged, and they're subjecting to these people to very unsafe living conditions. And that's really what code enforcement should be focusing on, making sure that people are never placed in a situation where a family or an individual's life is in danger.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments and the answers to the response to the questions from the audience. And now what we would like to do is to have the closing comments from each one of our candidates. And for this one, we're going to begin again with Mr. Stein. And you'll have 1 minute for each one of these closing statements.
You have 3 people running for mayor. 2 of them are already sitting on city council. One city council member has accused another city council member of causing high crime rates in the city. City council has very little control over crime rates. City council has control of holding staff accountable. City council has not held staff accountable for many of the decisions taking place. I've been involved in city activities and attending city council meetings for over 10 years. These city council members have sat on city council for 6 years, and prior to that, attended very few city council meetings. I've been attending city council meetings for over 15 years. I have relationships with many department managers. I know where the bodies are hidden. I know where the money can be found. I like to make the city better. I know where the money's at, and that's what it takes to make the city better. Please vote for me as mayor, because I'm going to hold staff accountable. I want to see monies are being spent more appropriately. I'm not going to overspend. I can't overspend Measure O because our current city council has now indebted the city for 6 years of debt by using Measure O monies. I can't touch any more money based on the actions by city council. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Flynn?
Thank you very much. There's only one person sitting at this table that has been mayor, and that's me. You're looking at him right here. Don't look too long. And I have a proven track record. And when you make a decision, when you vote, you really have to discern between, quote unquote, who you like and who actually gets the job done. You should really focus on the latter, not the former. It's not about liking someone, even though that's part of politics. It's about who do you believe can get the job done. And as mayor of the city of Oxnard, when it comes to streets, I've gotten that job done. I led the city council to approving $30 million to be spent on paving every residential street in the city. Either I presided over that and I led that, or I didn't, and I actually did. I led the city council in taking over our trash facility, which is going to save the taxpayers $2.5 million. That is proven performance, and it is focused proven performance. It's not all over the map, it's actually getting the job done. So as your mayor, so I ask for your vote. I appreciate your support and your confidence.
Thank you. And Mr. McDonald?
Again, I'd like to thank Associated Student Government for putting this on, allowing us to be here, and our moderator, Dr. DeReese, thank you very much. And I will borrow part of the mayor's statement, is who's getting the job done? And as council, we're not getting the job done. We are not making decisions, we're not efficient, we're not focused. The decisions we've made in the last couple of years without long-range planning have caused us to leave 25 positions open in the police department because our HR department didn't have the ability to hire anyone because they were focused on other issues. That's unacceptable. I'm a public safety candidate. I come from public safety. We have ignored public safety for the last 2 years. I believe it's time to change. I think it's time to be focused, to make decisions, which is what we're elected to do, and to move forward doing the business of the city. Not having 7, 8, 9-hour council meetings and pushing stuff off the agenda. As mayor, we will be focused, I will be focused, and we will move to the future and give Mr. Nyhoff the ability to run the city the way he should.
Thank you very much. And let's give a big round of applause. I would like to also make a certain that we give big thanks to our president of our college, Dr. Rick, senators and other officers. I'm going to turn the meeting over right now to Alibet Valencia, Student Body President.
Hi everybody, again, thank you so much for coming out. This is the first time that we do anything like this. This board, the ASG, is working really hard together, being organizational and communication to build a bridge, really, between the city and the college and the county and everything. So thank you guys for coming here tonight. Really, thank you guys, and thank the candidates. To give a few words to the chairperson of this committee who has experience in this, who led the ASG into doing this. Honorable Member Josh Reese, wants to come up here and say a few words.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Josh Reese, and I'm a student here at Oxnard College. I want to thank the mayor teams for coming here, putting a schedule in for this at the last minute. Thank our president, Mr. Duran, for being the #1 supporter on this, and my friendship partners here. I call them my family. This is something new, so young youth, things can be done. We need you. We need them. We need to collaborate that bridge so we can all understand what our city needs, who are going to represent our city, and who our leaders are. We always say they're never doing nothing for us, but we never come to be part of them. You understand? And hear them out. You understand? So I tell people, think about how you want your community to be, get involved, and you can make a change. Because then you select the right person for your city, and you can't blame nobody but your community, because we're the community that vote. Nobody else does it. Thank you very much, and hope you guys are here part of Oxnard College. If you guys are not, enroll when you guys get out of high school. And Oxnard's #1, guys.
I'd like to thank the sponsors who helped us get this through. We have many, many people here. First, KDTV back there. Thank you guys for doing everything. It will be on tomorrow. Thank you, KDTV. Awesome. Oh, Tony's right here. Tony D. He's always at all the events. Thank you for being here, Tony. Always kind of. Tony's will be on YouTube together tomorrow, right, Tony? Awesome. Okay, we have more sponsors here. We have their logos. Vida newspaper, it will be on that. Thank you, Vida. We have Jessica de Mexico. Thank you. We have a corner pocket. The Beaters Place, they donated also a spot in the new location. Downtown Oxnard. And we have Extreme Customs and Collision. Thank you for what you donated. And Danny's Munchies, thank you. And Fresh and Easy, down the street. Thank you, Dr. DeVries. Sorry. Thank you, everybody. Now let's take some photos.